and the air has a bristle to it.
A bristle.
I don't think that makes any sense. But I don't think we're going to get anything until this afternoon. That's at least what... and it's been downgraded to 6 to 9 inches, I believe. At least for here.
What was it before? Was 8 to 12?
Yeah.
Over a foot.
So do you want meteorologist Richard?
You almost seem disappointed that I'm downgrading it just a little bit here.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a latest word from our meteorologist here. Just came across the 20 minutes ago.
Can I add, it does seem that it is hitting right now. It's hitting to the west a little bit more because there are school closings in the Syracuse area.
Again, a wrong forecast for us. It never formed, and most is going to the north. We'll get 4 to 7 today. Wait a minute. What is he saying? 4 to 7 p.m. today. We'll get an inch or two. That's all. Keeler will be bummed as he loves to expand the forecast and gets high on it.
I really would prefer, what's his name, Dick? I would prefer, to be honest with you, no snow at all. But, it is what it is. I mean, I love how we hold these meteorologists. And by the way, I just read. It's not like
I know. It's not like you come up with these forecasts.
It's not like I'm sitting there and saying, I'm watching this high pressure. It really looks like this thing could come down a little lower based on the jet stream. I've seen it drop about 2 degrees.
Now, what does your model say?
My model is saying, my models are pretty hot.
Yeah.
Okay. So all I can tell you is the National Weather Service is saying that it's down to about 6 to 9 inches. So that means we could get 6. It does mean we might not get any of that, but it's calling for heavy snow this afternoon on the afternoon commute. So you might get some schools. Don't get panicky, Richard. You might get some schools that might dismiss early. There's a few that are down in the to the south of us that are maybe anticipating something a little heavier. But for us, I would think the afternoon commute could be a little on the nasty side. So there you have it.
There you go.
Those damned
He's got to have
meteorologists.
something.
I mean, it's
Speaking
so
of getting
unlike
high
January,
on it, I think he gets high on sending emails.
The State of the Union has been set. We're going to get into that. We'll talk to Tanya Powers, Peter Franklin, the Gabby Cabby is coming up in just a little bit. I have some very interesting stories as we're already talking. I can't believe it, but already talking Valentine's Day.
Oh,
I guess
late.
you got to
It's 2
try
weeks
to.
away.
You're right. You got to try to sell as quickly as you can. Get on this Valentine's thing. We'll get into that just a little bit. And let's see. I had remember the durian fruit? It's the king of all fruits.
I thought about that.
Supposedly smells or tastes awful. Oh, it smells terrible.
I've had it in studio before. You can buy it here at some of the Asian markets, like down on Bleecker Street. You can buy it, but apparently there is a new. Are you familiar with this story?
No, but I was thinking of durian this morning.
There's somebody has done. You know how the geniuses have been able to kind of cross pollinate or whatever the hell they do marijuana, and they're like, this is my Cocoa Puffs strain of they name it and everything, right?
They do.
And it's more expensive. And if you listen to people who are old time pot smokers, they'll say, "Man, the stuff today is really, really potent." And that, I guess, is kind of by design. Well, this kid, I think maybe he's about 30 years old, but he's been working on this for a while. He has created a new strain of the durian fruit, the king of fruits. So this thing is mainly found in Asian countries, and you open it up, and it smells horrific. It smells, some compare it to like dirty socks, others compare it to dirty diapers. But you taste this custard-like cream that is inside, and it's sweet and it's delicious. If you can kind of plug your nose during the whole process. So with that said, this kid has created a new durian tree, which is apparently how they grow. And it is a spiky fruit. It also has a flavor that is creamy and has a flavor that is a little bit different. But what is unique about this, it is more potent. It is round instead of oval. And there are only 2 trees in the world, and it only produces I don't know, a couple of dozen durian fruits. They are now selling on the Asian market for over $1,000 a piece.
What? So do they smell worse or better?
Meanwhile, people in these Asian countries don't make $1,000 in a year when you really think about it. But so we won't be getting one of those, but I am trying to get a hold of one that is a little bit less pungent. And so you guys can at least try it. You should try it. We should always try
things. If it stinks, I can't eat it.
It does stink. You just have to get past that and plug your nose just a little bit if you can. What else here this morning? The flu season is something that they're saying might be a little bit worse than they had expected. Really, people are being recommended to get the flu shot. We'll talk to a physician on that one. Our free money question this morning from Hobica coming up as well. Let's get into the State of the Union. It seems like a pleasant conversation between Nancy Pelosi and the president yesterday. They exchanged pleasantries, and we have a date for the State of the Union. Rachel Sutherland from Fox News is standing by to fill us all in. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. That date is February 5th, and that comes 10 days before another potential government shutdown. And so we know that lawmakers on the Hill, they're negotiating with the White House on a deal, hopefully for these federal workers who could be caught up in this again. But, yeah, February 5th is the date. The president has accepted Nancy Pelosi's invitation.
Was it a good sign, you think? I guess you'd say it seems like a good sign that they were civil to each other yesterday.
Yeah, they actually had a phone call.
Yeah.
So it appears that the president saying, I look forward to meeting you on the 5th. And Speaker Pelosi said the conversation with the president was very pleasant. And she said that we talked about things we can work together on, such as infrastructure. So in the president's speech, it's usually a wide-ranging speech about everything having to do with how things are going, from the economy to infrastructure. And, of course, we expect him to talk about the border. But lawmakers on the Hill, they're sounding a little less optimistic about Democrats really coming to the table with intentions of building any kind of barrier, a physical barrier. They're against that.
I really think these politicians really look at the polls. And so Nancy Pelosi will say, well, it looks like we've got our base and then some of the rest of the country. And that becomes the problem, where if they get this feeling that they don't need to negotiate, they're just playing politics. And I think really if they polled the country, the polls would say, we'd like you to accomplish something. And
right.
Avoid
the polls
this.
suggest that definite frustration with government shutdowns, no doubt about it. As far as the border wall, I mean, it seems to be divided among party lines when it comes to whether or not there should be a physical barrier. Democrats digging their heels about that. They don't seem to be really open to the idea of that. But, we have some time, and that gives federal workers a little bit of a reprieve from not knowing when their next paycheck is going to come. But it could happen again, or the president could declare a state of emergency. But as we've discussed a lot, that would be blocked in court.
Rachel Sutherland, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. Rachel's from Fox News, of course. Did you see the NFL has come out and it at the very least made a statement? Although this case is still in court. Apparently there are New Orleans fans that are suing. That is going nowhere, right?
Yeah, it's a private club. It's a private league. It's kind of like the contests here. What we say is final. The NFL can come in and say, you know what? We changed our mind. The Bills are playing Sunday. There's nothing anybody can do.
Yeah, that'd be funny. But the NFL coming out and saying, listen, they screwed the call up. Referees are human, and the NFL does not have the right to overrule the officials.
Well, that's stupid because they certainly do.
Well, not according to the NFL and their announcement.
What do they mean,
yesterday.
after the fact?
I believe so.
Okay.
At the very least, you know how people have been saying, well, this could go upstairs and this could be changed. They're saying they do not have that ability.
In the moment, it could.
And you don't have the logical ability to do it right now anyway. The Super Bowl is set. Tom Brady's doing his best to make it seem like this is David versus Goliath, or Goliath is being maybe described as someone who's not all that strong after all. And I don't know what they're doing, but that seems to be the storyline they're trying to run with to make this game more interesting.
Yeah, and the player who was actually responsible for the pass interference call that was never called came out yesterday and said, man, Brady's still good, but he's old. He's not as good as he used to.
Not a good
What
idea.
is he, an idiot?
Yeah, but I think that is part of the little piece of WWF that's or WWE, right? That's going on right now. They're trying to get eyes on this game on Sunday at a time when it seems like some fans are really, really they're publicly stating they're not going to watch because of this bad call. I don't think that really happens. I think people kind of look forward to this day. It's one of the biggest days of the year, Super Bowl Sunday.
I do think we're completely in store for an awfully disappointing game.
Could be.
When you look at how great the two championship games were.
Speaking of, you're right, we saw two amazing games. Speaking of WWE, Davey, is it who's the UFC fighter that's now? Is it Ronda Rousey that she's trying to become a WWE wrestler?
Well, she is a wrestler. She's been in there for a year.
Oh boy, I don't pay attention.
So what's the big story you're saying to me?
Well,
Did you hear what happened?
No.
Me either. I don't know. I don't have a big story. I just saw that she was. I had no clue that she had gone to.
Well,
I'm sorry, and I know you're a big wrestling fan, but I would see that as a horrific fall from grace, where she was actually something at one time in the UFC.
Well,
and after a couple of big losses, now she's doing the wrestling thing.
Well, there's a rumor going around that her contract.
I know I've angered him a little bit.
There's a rumor going around that her contract was only for 1 year and that she was going to quit after WrestleMania and start a family. But it is a 2-year contract that she's working.
She is being criticized for her character and that she's awful, just absolutely terrible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That when she does her thing, which it's all real, I think. When she does her thing, it's coming off kind of like it's not real.
Right.
Which really confuses me because it isn't, right?
It's not real. It's scripted.
But so basically what they're saying is she's a bad actor.
Okay.
She's not doing.
When you spent awful, I meant her character was awful, or she was an awful at playing the character.
I kind of think it's all they're saying that, at least what I read this morning, is that she's just, it's horrible.
That might be something if she got pregnant and then got in a ring.
Tough to watch, yeah. And Pete Davidson is the guy from SNL. You'll know that. Remember, he was dating
Ariana Grande. I don't even know how that was possible to begin with.
In Syracuse, remember, he had the scare of maybe committing some suicide, some sort of suicide or something. Anyway, they were making a movie this summer in Syracuse, and now while they were here, apparently there was a stop by police. One of his comedy friends was arrested, or at the very least ticketed for possession of marijuana. Well, now Pete Davidson, he has criticized Syracuse in the past, but this time he goes all in. Never again, Syracuse. The place is a dump. I will never go back. Claiming that the police were targeting him because he was a celebrity, following him around because he was a celebrity.
Yeah, because the Syracuse police don't have anything else to worry about.
Yeah, I think they've been pretty busy. Anyway, he also flips the bird to all of Syracuse in upstate New York in a video that was released on Twitter. Not that anybody cares, but there it is. 6:31, we'll talk to Peter Franklin, the Gabby Canby coming up. Tanya J. Powers, there's a push for Bible classes in public schools. And it's not necessarily classes as much as it is allowing students to read the Bible in school. The president saw it on Fox and Friends and tweeted it out just a couple of days ago. That's in the news. We'll talk to Tanya about that as well. And we'll get an update from Rachel Witter, chief meteorologist at Eyewitness News. The storm doesn't seem to be all that difficult until this afternoon, when forecasters are still reporting heavy snow, about an inch an hour is possible, and they're still saying 6 to 9 inches, but we probably won't see much of it until this afternoon. Rachel Witter is coming up. She was singing back up with him.
Oh, okay.
For him, since she's working for him.
Okay.
It's not like she was like in the audience and kind of humming along.
She made her way up there.
She just stood up and started singing.
Michael, I've always been a big fan.
Mind if I join in? Anyway, sorry. I'm amusing myself this morning. She will be on the Wendy Williams show. I'm not sure when that's on, but that's on today.
She's
Wendy
the one
Williams
that falls
show.
all the time, right?
She sang she sang the national anthem. We're talking about Jay Antoinette. She's from, I believe, New Hartford. Or here in the area, and lives in the New York City area currently. So, all right, I want to give you an update on...
She was also the one who was in that modeling contest, right? That picture contest.
She was. Yeah, she had I forgot who sponsored that, but it was some magazine.
Was it Maxim?
Might have been. Yeah. Rachel Witter standing by, chief meteorologist at Eyewitness News. Looks like the heavy snow seems to be moving a little later on in the day. What do you think there, Rachel?
Yeah, we have light snow right now, but the wind has definitely picked up, and that's what's powering both sides of the storm. So we'll have just the storm system itself that's going to come up from the south, and then lake effect behind it. So the wind plays a very key role in this. Right now, if you're mad that you're not waking up to a lot of snow, it's because this storm system had to overcome a lot of dry air. So it took like hours for the snow to even reach the ground. So we're getting to that point right now. And the heaviest stuff definitely going to come later on, late morning, early afternoon. So I think that's a good call by the schools to be doing the early dismissal, just based on the timing of this.
So you think we're going to see we'll see more of that with the local schools? I know there's a few out there that are doing it, especially to the south. Looks like Oneonta and Cherry Valley, that area. So you feel that that's something parents should probably plan for today?
I think that's the right call by schools, just based on dismissal time, 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when the heaviest stuff is going to be out, and that's in addition to whatever we pick up between now and then. Will be blowing around and accumulating. So this isn't our worst storm that we've ever had, and this is definitely a very routine storm for central New York, and accumulations are not out of control, with the exception of Tug Hill that could get a couple feet out of this, but that's, an area that will get that. So I think widespread here around the area, 5 to 9 is a good bet by later on tonight. Once this thing wraps up, it's going to stop real quick. And then, there's a brief break for a few hours, and then lake effect. And that's not going to hit everybody. So it's a quick-moving storm. It's kind of run-of-the-mill, but it's still something worth using some caution for, especially this afternoon.
I have to tell you this, what was the day? Was it Friday? We got, was that lake effect snow? Because it just came down. It was like a whiteout for like an hour and a half. And it made its way through the area. I'm assuming that's lake effect snow.
Yeah. So I saw a lot of people Friday being like, it's sunny, and now it's snowing, and I can't see anything. So lake effect bands are pretty narrow, as we all know. So when you get under those, they're pretty intense. But when you're out of them, you're out of them for a while.
It's funny because I had my daughter is a new driver, so she was just about to leave where she was at, and it's a complete whiteout. So I'm like, do not drive. I'm coming to get you. We'll go pick up the car later. By the time I got to where she was, the sun was shining, and the roads were clearing up. So it's exactly what you described.
Yeah. So they were kind of meandering north and south. So they were, we got on and off snow in Utica. They really didn't stay put too long. The other thing with this storm, and I think this may be the bigger player, is the bitter cold behind it. Mm-hmm. This is going to drop our temperatures very quick tonight, and then tomorrow morning, I think it's going to be hard for us to get wind chills above 0 tomorrow.
Great.
Through the entire day, not just the morning. And then same thing with Thursday. Our high temperatures are in the single digits, so any little bit of wind you put on top of that is, going to knock the wind chill down really quickly too. So I think that's kind of the bigger player with this storm. This isn't, a huge snowmaker. It's just the timing of it is kind of tricky with it being in the afternoon, evening, and then it starting this morning. It's not going to be terrible this morning, but there is the roads are slick. It doesn't take much. So there's all kinds of things with this storm. It's not something to be super, super worried about, but if you're prepared, I think this is definitely a doable doable storm.
All right, good stuff there, Rachel. We appreciate it. Rachel Witter is the chief meteorologist at Eyewitness News, and we are in the midst of a winter storm warning. Richard is yelling at his radio right now, or his TV, however he listens or watches us. Tiny J. Power is standing by right now from Fox News. The president, was it yesterday or the day before that he was tweeting out about teaching the Bible or reading the Bible in school? What's the background on this one, right, Tanya?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, he was tweeting, I think it was yesterday, that he was tweeting that about numerous states introducing Bible literacy classes and giving the students the option of studying the Bible. He thought that was a great idea. And, in fact, there have been several states, some of them did this last year. Bible literacy bills were considered in Alabama, Iowa, and West Virginia. None of them passed last year. Now, one did pass in Kentucky in 2017 that creates legislation for public high schools to offer elective literature courses on not only the Bible but also Hebrew scriptures as well.
Yeah.
Now there are other states, Missouri, Indiana, West Virginia is trying this again, Virginia and Florida, where bills are under consideration again.
It is interesting to watch. The president tweeted this out, of course. It's something that I believe was on Fox News. And I do find it kind of interesting because at a time where certain conservatives are criticizing the president, saying he just got beat up by Nancy Pelosi, this is a core issue that would rally them up a little bit. And he tweeted it out to, I would imagine, not a big surprise. A lot of people support what he tweeted out.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. If you kind of take a look at the big picture, you have to wonder, okay, what was the timing on this? I mean, this is not the only thing he tweeted, obviously, but what was the timing on this? Why now? When it's kind of sort of out of left field, maybe a little bit.
Well, it was on one of the programs he was watching, and
it was.
That's what usually ends up in his Twitter feed. So
yeah,
it's crazy. Okay, interesting times. Tanya Powers, thanks so much. We appreciate it. I can tell you, I can't imagine the governor of New York State would allow that. He'd be flipping. Joe Lowe standing by before we break. Hello, Joseph. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. This is Chief Meteorologist Joe Lowe, and I have to warn you on a severe heat wave coming through central New York. Stay in your homes. 120-degree temperature today. You could get burnt just by walking outside.
Do you think there's an overkill? Do you think people...
Overkill?
Yeah.
Overkill's an understatement. For God's sakes, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's going to hit. The city of Utica shuts down yesterday. Come out and buy your sofa today, folks. There's no snow. Don't worry about it. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yes, fill your house with milk, eggs, bread, and a sofa.
Holy cow!
What happened? What happened?
First of all, I if you just listen to Rachel, I don't think she was over-exaggerating at all. I think she I think she really worked hard to kind of lay it out there as this thing's gonna hit, right?
Yeah.
No?
I just don't know what's going to happen, Bill. I just don't know anymore.
Right. It is interesting. I know the city of Utica has a winter a snow emergency in place.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't it takes effect later today, right? 6 to 9
well,
or something.
It started yesterday, and they were all talking about 1 a.m. it's going to start. I woke up at 4 this morning, and there's nothing. I was planning on riding down around the streets of Utica this morning on that snowmobile.
Sell some sofas, Joe. Thanks. Joe Load. There he goes. Sliding down the highway. Joe should go to lunch with Richard today. They'd have a good time. Got a break. Hold on. I didn't watch any of this on Sunday, but this young figure skater who has now become the youngest winner of the U.S. Women's Figure Skating Championship in history. I think it was Lipinski that was the first one. She might have been 15 years old. This girl is 13, and she was unbelievable. Wow. She's probably... I think the next Winter Olympics will be in 2022, I believe. But she'll be 15 years old then, when you think about it. So they're saying she is unbelievable. I don't know who they are, but I think they also give us the forecast. Those that are saying. They're saying she's incredible. Coming up, we'll talk to Peter Franklin, the Gabby Cabby, in just a minute. Let me talk to you about this crazy story. And I've always worried about this, especially when... hotels, even in the South, is when you worry about things and animals getting into the toilet. And I know it probably could never happen, right? Well, a woman in Australia was in the middle of
Number 2.
Said, well, it could have been either way there. And she was bitten by a 5-foot python hiding in her toilet.
Oh, my God.
The local news interviewed her about it in her bathroom. See if you can understand what she says. Here we go.
When I sat down, I felt this really sharp tap on my bottom.
I like how the TV station actually got her to do the interview in the bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pain. I thought, holy what was that? But when you've got your knickers and your long pants around your ankles, it's pretty hard to go far. And to be honest, it was like running a 3-legged race without a friend. This was a midstream adventure.
Okay, I'm going to stop because I don't know what in the world she's saying.
She said it's really shocking, and she didn't know what was going on. It's hard to react quickly when you have
your knickers around your
knickers and your long pants around your ankles. And then she said it was like running a three-legged race without your partner.
Oh, so
and she said it got me when I was midstream.
Okay, how did you get that? I wasn't even close.
I'm a great translator.
SNL did a bit the other night on Saturday that was they were up in an airplane and the pilot had gone unconscious and they radioed down to try to get help and they were going to walk them through landing the plane. But the person at air traffic control was Scottish, honest to God, and they couldn't understand a thing he was saying. And it was kind of funny. We had a friend who was Scottish, and I swear to you, every Thanksgiving she would explain to me the history of Hitler and World War II and her experiences. I couldn't understand a single word. I would just kind of nod and. Really, and you get all sweaty when you can't understand somebody.
I'm sure there were good stories.
I'm sure they were. And I was always very respectful. Peter Franklin is the Gabby Cabby in New York City.
Can we just one more thought on this woman? She seems to be fine. She's telling jokes about it.
Yeah, she's. I would be traumatized forever, right?
Yeah, that's kind of disgusting.
And it was a 5-foot snake, for God's sakes. Probably not able to ever comfortably utilize the facility again. I don't know what I would do.
You'd have to check it and put a snake
You would
on
prefer a porta-john at that point, right? Because you know there's no...
I think, yeah. You'd want to make sure that you'd be checking. That's for darn sure. Peter Franklin is the Gabby Cabby in New York City. There have been stories of rats in toilets in New York City. I've heard that story. I think I read that once. But Peter's on the line now. Good morning, Peter Franklin.
Good morning, good morning. Here now, the news. That's my broadcast voice.
I like it. How about this shutdown, Peter? I just want your take on the whole thing, where we are, the battle between Pelosi and the president, and what we really accomplished after the longest shutdown in U.S. history.
You know, I really haven't heard that much chatter about it. You know, sometimes when we're going through something in the country or in New York, you know, it's like everybody getting into the cab is talking about it and discussing it and something. There really was very little commentary, and the only thing I can presume is that the number of federal employees that are in New York City, and we got oodles and oodles, was probably not that many to create any distress or what have you. Also, in New York City, it's a pretty much full employment in the sense that almost anybody who wants a job. So, for instance, if you were a government, and I don't know this for a fact, but if you were a government employee and you were missing some paychecks, it's pretty easy to pick up part-time jobs here. Yeah. So I don't think the city was hurt as much. The big topic of conversation is Cuomo and the abortion thing. That is getting people crazy.
Well, and you've got you've got stories right now that are saying the Supreme Court could actually take up Roe v. Wade in some upcoming cases, although they've kind of avoided that. The other thing that's interesting that Cuomo has proposed, because he now has carte blanche in the Senate and Assembly, is paying non-American citizens, giving them a free ride for college tuition. And that
he wants to be president of the United States. Yeah. But, you know, there's some problems that we all face in life that just don't have a solution. I mean, for instance, you say the spaceship was going on for all eternity. You know, what's eternity? That's the same thing you got with the abortion thing. I don't see how there can ever be a solution one way or the other because of the fact that if you say you're in favor of it, you can make a legitimate argument in certain circumstances, I guess. And if you say you're against, you can also make a tremendous number of arguments against it. So it's never going to be resolved. No matter what laws they pass, it's always going to be a bone of contention among people.
Flying taxis, that's the word, Peter, and they might actually be pilotless. What are you hearing about this?
Well, they're not going to be pilots because they're going to hire me. I was very lucky growing up. Here's a guy, I grew up on the Grand Concourse in the Bronx. My oldest brother had an airplane. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
And my middle brother had a sailboat. So here I'm the baby of the three, and I get to learn how to fly, and I get to learn how to sail. I can't beat that. And as a matter of fact, I can remember once asking a girl, gee, would you like to go sailing today? And she said, where? I said, Providence. And she said, how are you going to get to Providence? I said, we'll fly up in the plane.
Nice.
That's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the way to pick somebody up.
And we got into the plane. She said to me, how long have you been flying? I said, about 30 minutes. But I didn't mention that until we were up in the air.
Had you been flying for 30 minutes or your history?
No, I had been flying for more. You got to do a lot. I think it was like 30 hours. The license is current, so I use this opportunity to tell people if they got air taxis, planes, I got it covered. I'll take care of it.
So your slogan could be "Come fly with me," Peter Franklin.
That's right, exactly. Come fly with me.
But Peter, they wouldn't allow this in New York City.
Well, I don't know about that.
Today,
I mean, of course, it sounds crazy, but they probably said to Columbus, "What are you, crazy?
Yeah,
Where do you think you're going?"
Well, right, but
so
listen.
I mean, they're going to deliver packages by drones. They try. They'll work around it. If there's a way to make a buck, somebody's going to do it.
I agree, the package delivery by drone, but there's no way they're letting taxis fly around
right now.
New York City.
It's certainly pretty it's novelty, and there's a grocery store I think out there that's actually using a driverless vehicle that delivers groceries. They have one of them, so how many groceries could you deliver? And it's a little vehicle, looks like the size of a golf cart.
Don't you ever say in my presence the word driverless.
That's a very good point, because
Just
that would
watch
be
yourself,
awful.
buddy. I know we're old friends, but I'm not going to tolerate that kind of smut coming out of your mouth.
Point is taken here. I want to ask you about the family that was kicked off the American Airlines flight because of...
They smell bad.
Body odor. Yeah.
Man, that's disgusting.
And I have a picture on my website of the new American Airlines plane to resolve that problem.
So how do you tell somebody that? How did they handle this?
It's pretty tough. I mean, we've all faced that problem. How do you tell somebody that, your breath is not good or, something like that? But I guess when it's a third-party impersonal stewardess saying, get off my plane.
Yeah. Have you ever had that problem inside a taxi cab?
Yes, you do. It's a never-ending collection of smells. But the worst, and I don't have nothing against Bloomingdale's. Bloomingdale's is a very nice store. But the fact of the matter is there's nothing worse than picking up some babe who just came out of the cosmetic department of Bloomingdale's and tried every perfume and scent.
Burns your eyes and smell. You
get it. So you drive with your windows open for a while.
It's the best tour in New York City, and
thank you.
Much deodorization inside the taxi cab, I must say. It's Peter Franklin's tour of New York City. Go to Gabby.com. We'll do it again next week. Peter, thanks so much.
All right, sweetheart.
All right, you had fun. Peter Franklin. And don't ever say driverless vehicle around Peter. He doesn't like it. Got a break. Coming up, we'll talk about the flu season. We'll speak with a physician on that. And then Cuomo had promised this is going to be the year that we're going to get more done in the first 90 days with a Democrat-controlled Senate and Assembly. And let me tell you something. That's what he's doing. They're going to take up gun control today. That's going to be a big issue. Also, they have passed the DREAM Act, which will allow for kids whose parents are undocumented to get free tuition in colleges in New York State. Also, the Innocence Project. I support this one. This would open up the statute of limitations on any child that has been molested. It opens that door up. It might actually eliminate statute of limitations. I'll read up on that coming up. The Child Victims Act is what it's called. Also, Catholic leaders are now calling on the church to excommunicate Governor Cuomo after his abortion bill. There's a lot of legislation happening right now. Some of it you might like, some you might hate. We'll get into that coming up this hour as well, along with the free money question from Hopica.
Can I correct something? Because it was a round-robin-style thing, as I remembered from Utica. For some reason, I was only seeing the last game's recap. So Reed Boucher ended up – they played The North team played, North Division played 3 games last night. Boucher ended up with 2 goals. He did not score in the final game, but he scored in the previous 2.
I want to go to this right now, just before we break here, is Dr. Robert Rankins is an emergency medicine physician. And here's the word, about 7.3 million people hit by the flu this season. And they're searching for what is called a better vaccine. Doc, good morning. Thanks for coming on. How bad is the flu going to be this year, and how bad is it right now?
Well, it's definitely pretty much widespread. It's in probably 36 states now, including New York. That we're seeing a lot of it. It doesn't seem as severe as last year as far as hospitalizations and mortality yet. We're still running behind what the numbers were last year.
Yeah.
But it's definitely widespread.
And how effective is the flu shot this year, and do you recommend people get it?
Definitely still recommend people getting it. What we're seeing so far, and you really won't know till the end of the season, but probably about a 35 to maybe close to 40% effectiveness rate. And, you know, a lot of people say it's kind of a coin toss on whether you should get it or not. And I guess it is, but it gives you a 50% roughly chance of not getting it, or at least if you do get it and you've had the vaccine, it's usually a little bit milder illness. So it's still worth doing.
And, of course, it's really easy to get here in New York. You can go to your local pharmacy. Most insurance programs cover it. I do want to ask you about the latest, if you could just give me your opinion on vaccinations and the latest outbreak in California. There was one actually here in New York State, a measles outbreak, because some people are not getting the measles shot. What are your thoughts on that vaccination?
Yeah, there's been a lot of studies out there over the last several years, or probably about 10 years actually, and that kind of got people on the anti-vaccination wagon. And most of those studies that I've seen anyway, that I've looked at, do not usually pan out.
Right.
You can make a study kind of support anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, we had measles and some of those illnesses, pretty much wiped out until this, everybody started not vaccinating again. So, again, I think those vaccinations for kids are definitely the way to go. They've been effective for years, and now's not the time to start having problems with that again.
What is interesting that if someone if they're not vaccinated, or let's say there's a child who is vaccinated, and someone comes in and they're positive for the measles virus, is it true that somebody with the vaccination can still catch it?
You can get, again, any of those vaccinations. They're not, I guess the easiest way to say it, they're not 100%. You can get the illness, kind of like chickenpox, for example.
Right.
We do, chickenpox vaccination. Well, kids will still get chickenpox. It's just, instead of getting the illness like we used to see, it's a much milder, 2 to 3 day kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely, your immune system's kind of ready for it.
All right. I know in New York State, I don't believe that there is any exemption in New York State. I think you have to, if you're going to go to public school, you have to have the measles shots or any of those vaccinations. I was surprised to hear that California has an exemption. They can go to a doctor and pay to have an exemption. That surprised me a little bit. In California, of all places. But that seems to be the case. But your recommendation is, even though it's about 50% effective, get the flu shot.
Yeah, and even now, if you hadn't already gotten ill, it's probably worth getting. It takes about 2 weeks to get full immunity and their full effectiveness of the vaccine, but it's still worth doing because it'll definitely make the illness a little bit milder for you.
All right, fair enough. Dr. Robert Rankins, thanks so much for taking the time this morning. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Have a great day. Thanks. Hold on tight. We're going to talk to Luke Perry from Utica College. He is a political scientist. And a free money question from Whole Bike coming up. A doozy of a question. Chance at winning $100 at WIBX. Dun-da-da. Richard says. I like it. I think at some points when I look over and I see Manaski like typing away at his phone, I think that's kind of it's leaning towards that segment right now, right? Because he's pelting you.
Let's see if he's got anything new.
A woman on and anybody wants to talk about any of this legislation that is being passed. This was warned. It's something that we've heard Griffo talk about. They're getting crushed in terms of this legislation. the Democrats have a strong majority in now both the Senate and the Assembly. And all this stuff is passing. All this stuff that never passed before, the Dreamers Act, which allows undocumented kids, students whose parents are undocumented, allowing them to get a free education. That has passed. You can expect some gun legislation to pass today. Additionally, the abortion bill that Cuomo is pushing forward, a lot of the stuff that wasn't passing before is going to pass. You want to talk about it, 315-736-0186. And Richard says...
Utica snow emergency. LOL. What a joke for maybe 3 inches of snow. Learn how to plow Utica or lack of.
A woman on a United flight was on her phone during boarding last week talking about how she had to move from her middle seat because the people on either side of her were so fat. I'm just reading what's here. Both of them could hear everything. The people could hear her talking about their weight. She said she was being squished. At least the two people were warm, she said, and I quote, "I eat salad." She asked me to move to a window seat. The woman next to her wanted her gone anyway because of the verbal abuse she was taking, and they were taping all of this as it went down.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know how I'm going to do this for the next 4 hours. It's just impossible because they're squishing me. Yeah, I flew with Miles. I don't have my choice.
Okay, does this woman, she must realize that they can totally hear her, right?
Yeah. She just
is she on the phone or is she complaining?
She's on the phone.
Wow.
Complaining to someone, which she really shouldn't even be on. I guess while you're boarding, I guess you can be on the phone. I guess.
I'm warm. Please, okay? Find me a window. Get me out of here. I gotta play back there. I can't do this. I can't breathe. It's so.
I would squish her more.
Yeah, just
I would
kinda lean in
I would pull a candy bar out too. I'd start slopping loudly on a candy bar, and I'd just squish the daylights out of that woman.
I wonder. I feel like there's more to this story, and I think this happens sometimes. We've done stories where people request a seat change and they don't get it. So I'm wondering if
I don't think so. I think this woman, it just by chance, she had a middle seat, and in that middle seat, on one side and the other, there were heavy people.
What I'm saying is, for instance, I'll give you an example. If I'm in here and we get in an argument, and I say, okay, I want to go in the other room, but I'm not allowed to. So then I call someone and I go, yeah, I'm in here with these two morons, and they won't let me leave.
So I'm sure
everyone thinks it's a best idea that I go. So the other two passengers complain.
And that, by the way, is absolutely true. By the end of this, the two passengers on either side of her were asking, like, were happy when she was moved. I wouldn't blame them. Plus, it gives them the extra room, unless the flight is sold out, right? And then they're kind of stuck. But here's the other thing that happens. And Andrew, you've flown on these budget. We look for cheap flights.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And when it's like, wow, and we're bragging about it. You're not going to believe it. I paid $75 round trip to Florida. Okay? And then we're surprised when you can't even, I swear, was it Frontier? Whatever one that flies out of Syracuse, one of the new ones. You literally can't pull out a laptop because your drop-down table is the size of
an iPad.
It's
the first one,
tiny.
Yeah,
it's like you got a cup holder now. That's all they give you.
I had a similar situation.
Literally, I put and the seats don't go back.
Right. No, you can't.
Laptop's like right up to my neck, and I'm not a big guy. So imagine for somebody that's
the laptop's
larger.
Teetering.
Yeah.
I had a similar situation. There was luckily I was in an aisle seat, but I had a heavier woman next to me. And, I didn't obviously say anything. It didn't bother me. The only thing was I felt bad because every time I put a little weight on my armrest, it would, dig into her leg. And I felt kind of bad about that.
See, that's how tight these planes are.
Yeah. And, I would catch myself doing it. I'd set my arm down, and I'd feel like a little bit of a push. Oh, sorry.
$49.95 round trip to Seattle. That's what do you think you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wayne, on the governor, legislation, Remington, and guns. Good morning, Wayne.
Yeah, hey, what's up, guys? You would think by now that they would, on any airplanes, cheap or expensive, that they would have certain sections for people in this obese society to sit comfortably.
Well, Americans are larger,
Mm-hmm.
but they do have, I believe it is Frontier. They do have you can buy larger legroom seats.
Yeah.
They do have those available. They'll cost you a little more.
But think of it, that's like almost like a form of segregation and discrimination.
I guess.
Well, you're comfortable, though, aren't you?
Putting all the heavy people in one spot.
In the back of the plane?
Yeah.
That would become a thing.
And it's not just heavy, though. It's big, too. Some people are just large.
Yeah,
and
some people are just bigger. Some people are taller. Some people are wider. You're born that way.
I said to my wife, why didn't you buy us the extra legroom? And she said, look at you. You don't need it.
They're all extra legroom.
I was saving the money here. Yeah. Anyway,
man.
Like, imagine if Mark Butler had to, when he has to fly.
That's a great example. Mark is enormous.
Yeah, he's like 3, 5. Who
yeah,
knows?
He's very tall, and I would imagine that his knees would come up to the
tray table.
Table there. So,
I don't think it's discrimination. I honestly think it's just a matter of comfort and, like I say, everybody's not the same. No matter what you think, everybody is not built the same.
Okay, so on Remington, what are your thoughts?
All right, that's what I was wondering with you. Does any of this help or hurt Remington with all these laws?
What are they trying to do? They're going to. I think they're going to pass a law that states that schools cannot have guns. Teachers cannot have guns. So I think that is what they're going to try to pass, and also making bump stocks illegal.
Yep, and then
so
they're going to
in this movement, there's a national movement, of course, to arm teachers. So now let's get on to this topic because it's going to get everybody going. So now they're going to make it once and for all that you will not be able to arm teachers in New York State.
So that if a federal law says that teachers have to, New York State can say we've banned it.
This is all part of Cuomo's battle with Trump and the feds.
They're also going to expand background checks. Sorry,
but at the same time,
I don't think. By the way, I don't think those three things affect Remington at all. But there's just a general climate that's anti-gun in the state, which does not help.
And is this elementary schools? I'm sure
all schools,
all
colleges. I was at I think I've told you this story. I was at this would not be. It might be public colleges, might be New York State colleges. They couldn't do that.
So you have
with,
maybe a retired police officer, maybe we know
saying teachers. You're right. A teacher could be a retired police officer.
We saw this with Swinskowski. We saw that with the former New Hartford police chief.
I think this is elementary and high school.
Okay,
but
even still, you could have a retired law enforcement person who is the most trained in the state.
Yeah,
and they could be teaching some. I mean, at Notre Dame, it was NJROTC, right? The ROTC. They have that at Proctor now too. Those are military guys.
I knew a guy.
If they're licensed to carry, they can't carry.
I knew before the schools had merged. The Utica high schools had merged. I was at a wedding, and I won't say what this guy was there for, but he was a teacher at one of the Utica high schools, and said, "I'm scared to death to go to school." And he opened up his briefcase, and he had a gun in there. And he said, I carry a gun with me. I'm not sure that I wanted him to have a gun, though. After talking to him the whole night, I really wasn't comfortable with it, just for the record, Wayne. But, I take a pistol with me every day. You never know what
He's going to be in a bad mood, right, one day and come in there and start.
Well, his thing was you never know what these kids are going to do. So, I was not comfortable with that, to be honest.
With the
based
money
on
that they always get from like drug seizures and stuff like that, what gets done with that money? I'm sure they just don't put it in a holding room and just say,
I think it does.
Just leave it there and it can rot.
It's in the evidence locker. It stays.
Yeah,
Something's got to happen with it. Why can't they do something about all the stuff they complain about not getting money for, not having money for, or not passing laws for because of the money or whatever the reason?
Airports.
Why can't they use drug seizure money for anything?
I believe they do. We got to ask Matt.
That's a good question.
That. I believe that might have changed a few years ago, several years ago.
Do you know if you leave airline stuff, for instance, if you're on an airplane, you lose something, a lot of people just don't ever find it. Stuff gets lost. Sometimes it's valuable stuff. Sometimes it's whole suitcases that no one claims. You know they have a holding area where that's especially in the bigger cities, and then they auction it off.
Yes.
And they raise the money. I don't know what they do with that money, but you could do kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, we've got a lot of cocaine over here. We've got some guns. Okay, let's auction this stuff off.
I think the way it works is just like, you ever see those storage wars?
Yes, it's like that.
Yeah, but they don't get the rifle through it, and they say there's $50 in
They
the
don't
left
get to do that
pocket,
for
and there's
storage
8
either.
bags of
Sometimes
pounds of
you
cocaine
take the
over
bag.
there.
You don't know
Right,
what you're getting.
Right.
Yeah. And I believe they had something like that when I was in Providence. But it's something that does exist out there. It's kind of
I
wild.
just mean money in general. Like when they're talking about the border wall and they're so hell bent on the however many billions of dollars. That
why
need,
not take
and
seized
they're
money?
saying that drugs come through and they seize them and the money and all this stuff they do. Well, why not use it for something positive?
Next time we have McNamara on, we will ask that question for you, Wayne.
Right,
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I
Have a
think
great
they
day.
do. And can we just go back to this? See, there's a difference between if New York State bans any teacher from having a gun versus a teacher
I think it would
should
become a gun-free zone. Like now, you
how
might
does
have
that
you might
change
have
what-
a security person with a gun, but not teachers.
The school resource officers or the other ones,
Licensed security or whatever they do, and
those will still be permitted.
Yeah.
well, then it wouldn't be a gun-free zone. But okay, go ahead.
Well, did you hear the story of? I get it. There are people on both sides of this. Some people believe that if a teacher is trained, like you're talking about, that teacher should be allowed to have a gun. I'm telling you that based on this legislation, that will no longer be allowed.
It would just all I'm saying is, and I think it obviously shows what side I'm on. I would be okay with a law that says no teacher shall be forced to carry a weapon or have some type of a gun in their classroom if they don't want it. But again, I mean, the former New Hartford police chief is now a teacher, right, or at least was for a while. The former Oneida County undersheriff is now teaching. Again, it's at a college. It's not like he's a 7th grade history teacher. But why wouldn't we want those people to have guns?
It's all part of the debate. You got to wonder. I mean, how you want your schools to be safe. If someone comes in, you want somebody there that does have a weapon that could take this person out. I would want that as a parent.
Gun-free zone just screams, no one here will stop you to the bad guys.
And don't get me wrong, there could still have a resource officer or a cop on duty. A housekeeper in New York ended up in the hospital after she got stuck in an elevator. Did you see this? At a billionaire's townhouse in Manhattan last week. She was trapped there for 3 days.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So wonder if she didn't die. The local news talked to people who live in the area. Most of them kind of felt bad for the lady.
I'm glad she's alive. That's all I can say.
Oh, my God. I feel so terrible for her.
Well, I think it's incredible that she's fine. I mean, it's a terrible thing. But there should be some kind of safety precaution if you live in a townhouse, a number to call or someone to be checking on her.
Now, while you have people that are sympathetic to one's misfortune, there's always one in the group that is like Richard, who's like, there's no storm. I don't know what you're all talking about. This person feels, what is everybody having such? It was 3 days. Give me a break. This is being blown out of proportion. Here we go.
Human can last well over 72 hours with food and 72 hours without water and 7 days without food. So what she went through isn't anywhere close to the limits of human endurance, but it's just beyond what we're used to because we've become so civilized we've lost touch with our true strength.
Okay, you want that guy with you when, I don't know, when you get lost on the highway or something? He'd just be the one telling you, stop being a baby, you baby. 7:32, free money question of the day from the Hope Michael Law Firm coming up. Hold tight, it's Monday or Tuesday morning, and we are looking at a winter storm warning. The bulk of this expected this afternoon. Rachel Witter earlier this morning gave us a number of, 5 to 9, somewhere in that range. Within the Tug Hill area for snowmobilers, the North Country, looking at a lot of snow. Could get a couple of feet up that way. And by the way, you're seeing some schools already announce early dismissal. Schools like down to the south, Cooperstown, Oneonta. The weather is no different down there than it is here right now. And they're expected to get the same amount of snow as we are. But there are some people pulling the trigger early today, some school districts pulling the trigger. That is not happening in our local area as of right now. However, Rachel Witter said parents should expect the possibility of early dismissal today. 7:33 at WIBX. Court in Rome was the 7th caller through. Good morning, or the 5th, I guess it was, right? Good morning, Court. How are you?
Good, Bill. How you doing?
All right, we're sticking with the topic that we were just talking about, kind of. And here is your question. You know the deal. You have 7 seconds to answer. If you don't know the answer, which chances are you won't, in this question, I'm just giving you a little heads up, come up with an answer. And here we go. English King Henry VIII died a very large man. Had he flown coach, he probably would have asked for extra legroom. So here's your question. What was his waist size when he died at the age of 55. Ready, go. Waist size.
55.
How are you going to go with 55?
That was my guess, too.
That's a good guess. It was so close to that, 54 inches. Now, that might sound like a question no one would ever know the answer to, but it is pretty common knowledge that he had grown to the to a waist size of 54 inches upon his death. Yeah, it was a leg injury, I guess. He hurt his leg, and then he just kept putting the pounds on. We will give you a $25 gift card to the 72 Tavern and Grill at the Adirondack Bank Center. Sit tight. Davey's going to hook you up, okay?
Hey, thanks, Bill.
All right, Court. Thank you. And I love the food there. By the way, there, I had not tried. What is it that you have when there? It's not potato tots, but it's that Cobb salad.
Oh, my goodness.
It's really, really good.
It's incredible.
Luke Perry.
They got the whole slices of avocado on there.
Luke Perry is a tenured professor and chair of the Department of Government and Politics at Utica College. Perry was a graduate fellow at the University of Massachusetts, where he earned an MA and a PhD in political science, and he's with us this morning via Utica College. Luke, good morning. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Good morning.
So, longest government shutdown, and do you think that, the thing everyone's saying now is that nothing was accomplished? The president was exactly where he was before the shutdown. But I do have to say that I think that we all might have learned a valuable lesson out of this whole thing, that this shutdown was painful, and I think we might see some legislation that maybe gets rid of congressional pay if a shutdown occurs. What do you think?
I think that's possible. There's certainly a big political cost, particularly for Republicans, that came out of this shutdown. So I think it is instructive moving forward that chances are they're going to try to avoid this more than they have in the past.
And certainly a political cost, but does this also show that he's not, he'll do it? He's not afraid to pull the trigger on this. As painful as it is for the party or for his own numbers, he will ride this out, and maybe he'll look to do it again for another 6 weeks.
Sure, that's another way to look at it. I think President Trump has been very consistent on two issues in particular, trade and immigration, and he certainly has an unorthodox political style, which is well documented, and he said he was willing to do this, and then he followed through. I think the length of it, I suspect his advisors and congressional leaders on the Republican side were encouraging him to reach this conclusion much earlier. So that piece of it surprised me.
I would be shocked if we see another shutdown. Only in that this was, and it's coming out now that several key allies were urging him not to do the shutdown in the first place, and were really urging him to get out of this, even though he walked away with absolutely nothing. So I think I'd be really surprised. What do you think also, what if he declares a national emergency and actually funds it with his executive order, funds the wall with executive order? Will he do it, and can he do it?
Well, I think a couple things. Now, when we talk about the shutdown, there were severe consequences for American citizens, so I don't want to underplay that. And similarly with the national emergency, when we think about democracies and executives declaring national emergencies, these are serious things. We're focused primarily right now on the politics of this, and I think probably the best case scenario politically for President Trump moving forward is that nothing emerges between the conference committee, and rather than have another government shutdown, he declares a national emergency. And that will go to the courts almost immediately and get tied up most likely for months. Yeah. The government stays open. Politically, he's standing firm on his demand that there be money for physical barriers at the southern, additional physical barriers at the southern border. And 8 or 10 or 12 months from now, when it works its way through the court system, things will have moved on well beyond this moment. So I think that's his best political option. Now, again, as I said before in your show, as a scholar of democracy, you have presidents declaring national emergencies. It's always a dicey thing because it gives expanded powers to one individual, and that's something that you always have to watch very carefully so those powers don't get abused. And obviously, in addition to the potential legality of how he would do this, there's also the question of whether an emergency situation really exists at the border. And those are the two debates that would emerge from that.
I got to tell you, the other thing that he walks away with, because that seems to be the road, although even though he probably will lose that, you're right. It kicks the can down the road, and he still gets to say, I stood firm, and the Democrats don't support border security. Politically.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think so. And what's going to be interesting, I think, moving forward here is the Republicans. So congressional Republicans are divided. They bore most of the political cost of what just happened. You've got several of them who are up, senators in particular, who are up for re-election in 2020. They don't want to go down this road again. And I'm really interested, the other way this could work out is that Republican leaders in Congress, the Democratic leaders in Congress, reach some type of agreement, and rather than having Mitch McConnell saying, well, we're not going to pursue anything or vote on anything that the president won't sign, which has kind of been his operating procedure, he goes ahead and puts the ball in Trump's court to see what he wants to do there.
Yeah.
That's a more remote possibility, but that's possible. It would be interesting if that happened.
How much political clout is riding on Nancy Pelosi right now? And when it comes to public opinion, it could be very easy for the public to turn on her and say that she's the real obstructionist in this whole thing.
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think one thing I've been sharing with my students to try to make sense of the shutdown in public opinion is that public opinion matters. A lot of people feel disconnected from government, and they're upset, rightly so, about what's happened over the last several weeks. But at the end of the day, if public opinion wasn't so decidedly unfavorable towards the shutdown and didn't overwhelmingly place the blame on Republicans, the shutdown still might be going on. Now, in terms of Speaker Pelosi, I think she's gotten a lot of credit for managing the Democratic side on things, and I don't, some of that, of course, she deserves. Some of that, I think, is just, she was dealt a good hand in terms of political miscalculations on the other side, and she's just, kind of holding the line there.
Talking to Luke Perry, who is a political science professor at Utica College.
Speaking of Speaker Pelosi, there's a lot of her, I guess, allies on the Democrat side, especially in the Senate, who are for some sort of physical barrier. Steny Hoyer coming out, Chris Coons, Joel Manchin, the first two I mentioned, no big fans of the president, but saying, there should be some funding for some form of physical barrier. Who is she more at odds with this potential decision? Her extreme left people in her party, or some of the more moderate Democrats that have come out and been more vocal in favor of border security?
I think it depends on the dynamic of the constituencies of the Democrats we're talking about. I think Democrats in Congress, both in the House and the Senate, who are in more liberal districts, tend to take a more critical view towards spending, $5 billion on additional physical barriers at the border, because the wall has really become a symbol beginning the 2016 campaign for a lot of things, and many Democrats don't like what that symbolizes. On the other hand, you have several Democrats, about a third approximately, in Congress who represent more purple districts, red and blue, and the views on border security and the idea of a wall, additional walling being a part of that is a little more complicated. It's more difficult for them politically to not hold that position. And also there's the reality that we have walling across sections of our border already.
Right.
So it's, the public reality of this, that we're going to build a big wall and seal off the border, it's not really that. It's just, providing more money to expand walling in certain areas where it might be helpful. So I think that comes up too.
It is interesting to watch those at the White House trying to argue over. It's not a wall. The president never said it was a wall. It's a barrier. It's not concrete. It's going to be steel. It's very interesting to watch how this is. Everybody's just trying to find that perfect place, that sweet spot where the public says, "Oh, I get it," and kind of change public opinion in their favor. I want to bring up the Mueller investigation. It looks like that's coming to an end. And you saw that Roger Stone was arrested. And I want to read a statement from him. He was on Fox yesterday and said this. I'd love your take on this, Luke. Look, I honestly believe that they're going to try to charge the president and the vice president with some hopped-up frame of Russian collusion, Stone said on Monday night. That way they can make House Speaker Nancy Pelosi president. She can make Hillary Clinton vice president and then step aside. This is the nightmare that they're working on through the Mueller investigation, which I call a witch hunt. What is your take on that theory, out there theory?
Well, I think Mr. Stone is obviously facing a good bit of legal trouble, and that just, to me, reflects the sort of personal and political tactics to try to manage that situation. I don't know what's going to happen in the Mueller investigation. I've never made any predictions. There's really a whole spectrum of outcomes that could come, and it may or may not end soon. I understand the recent comments that have been reported by the Attorney General, but only Robert Mueller knows. And in terms of the vice president in particular, he's been distant from a lot of what's been going on. The campaign activities that led to guilty pleas and indictments, most of that occurred when Pence wasn't on the campaign. So I don't think he's going to be a central figure in whatever happens, which would unravel what Mr. Stone is theorizing there.
Pretty out there conspiracy by Roger Stone, which I guess people aren't really surprised by. Anthony Brindisi, Congressman Anthony Brindisi, seems to be getting off to a very good start. What's your take and assessment on his first few weeks in office?
It seems to me there's been two dominant themes of his what we call home style of political science, the way he goes about representing his constituents, and that's bipartisanship and accessibility. So you listen to the messaging and the events that have been held and his general approach. Those have been the two overarching themes, and it makes sense. As we know, it's a predominantly Republican district. He was narrowly elected. It's going to be a challenging undertaking to try to be reelected, and I think he's modeling his approach to representation after Representative Kakko, the Republican in NY24 that he's held several events with. Kakko's used much of the same approach to successfully be elected and reelected 3 times over the last decade or so. So I think all that makes sense. What I'm looking for is at some point there's going to be some difficult votes that Representative Brindisi is going to have to take, and he's going to have to make some choices where bipartisanship is not going to be quite so easy for him. Yeah. And that's what I think is going to be particularly interesting. I think divided government will give them some cover in terms of policy, because the House can pass all kinds of stuff knowing that the Senate's not going to vote for it, so he can bow out of those votes as necessary. But particularly, if things come up in terms of oversight in regards to President Trump or the Mueller investigation, which we mentioned, and that's where I think he's going to have some challenges in terms of making determinations about how to proceed.
Well, I got to tell you, let's flip over to the New York State Legislature. Now the Senate is controlled by the Democrats as well as the Assembly. Talking about the DREAM Act, which has passed, which gives students whose parents are undocumented, the opportunity at aid and possibly free college. The Child Victims Act, which has passed. The abortion road, they're going down. Guns today they'll be talking about. And also, we're pretty close to the governor banning mugshots being released to the media. What kind of control does this governor have, and what's New York going to look like in the next 3 months?
Well, it's certainly been a busy term. Obviously, elections have consequences, and the Democrats did very well. And I think they're doing two things. They're moving quickly, both in terms of policy and process. So the 3 men in the room is no longer the norm this session in terms of the leaders of the legislature and the governor getting together and making decisions. Also, it's not so much a bunch of things coming out at the end of the session. We're seeing action here just 3 weeks in, and obviously the policies are moving to the left. A lot of these things are things that Democrats wanted to do, voting reform, for instance, for several years, and ran into some opposition by Republicans in the Senate. So I think it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be a highly active, productive meeting in terms of getting stuff done session, and it's going to be quite remarkable.
A definite swing to the left in New York without that Republican-controlled Senate. That is the case. Luke Perry, as always, we thank you. We'll do it again.
Thank you.
All right. Luke Perry, of course, from Utica College. Next hour, I want to talk about this ban. You understand what I'm talking about. One of the biggest things you'll find on the web is mugshots. So oftentimes a website will put up, check out all these funny mugshots. That draws huge clicks. That will be disappearing. They will be banning, and I think you're going to see this thing happen. Governor Cuomo's pushing for this, a ban on the release of mugshots. You might get a mugshot after a person's been convicted, but you won't be able to see it. Media won't get it. Police agencies won't be able to release it if they're trying to find somebody. We'll talk about that on the other side.
If they left now, they'd be done by tomorrow.
That is freaking funny. And how true is that when you think about it, right?
Listen, they can do anything, especially with steel. I saw a guy put a hole through a concrete block foundation with just a hammer and a piece of that rebar, and he was just like would have probably taken a concrete drill for the average human.
Yeah, they're unbelievable.
I've never seen anybody work as hard.
And I don't think they would need $5.7 billion. They would
No.
just want. All you'd have to do is give them a free booth at every farmer's market in the country where they could sell the baked goods.
Just commit to buying my butter.
Yes. We churn it ourselves.
It's good stuff. It really is. I'm not making
You
fun.
ever see one of those butter rolls? They sell them at, like, I think Joe Lode's Craft Place in Middleville,
Newport, yeah.
They sell it, and I think they sell it at Peter's Cornucopia. It's made by the Amish. It's this giant log of butter. Man, it's good. Good for the heart, they say.
Well, it's
really,
fresh
really
out of the
good.
barrel, huh?
I guess I don't know where it comes
They
from.
churned it and they just pull it out.
Yep, just pull that sucker out.
Yeah.
It's a monstrous thing
It's
of
the
butter.
shape of the churn that really is what
It might be. I had somebody suggesting a song parody for Dave Gordon, and for some reason I can't get my my music to play here, but I'll do that coming up. We'll work on it. It's not done yet, but it might be a good one because he wants to run for everything. It seems.
Yeah.
Is there a race he hasn't run in? What hasn't he run for yet? What's next? You could predict that could be the contest. After he loses this race, what's going to come next?
I thought it was going to
Where
be
I'm trying to think of the
comptroller,
song.
Oneida County comptroller.
I thought so too.
I didn't think he was going to shoot right for executive. Maybe sheriff at some point. You know, he kind of alluded or
Well, but
hinted.
he doesn't
to
have a law enforcement
That doesn't matter.
background. I think it does.
I'd love to hear his.
No, I
I
don't
would
think so.
love to hear. I don't. You do not have to have a law enforcement background to be sheriff in New York State. No, and a judge. He could be a judge.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be an attorney to be a judge.
It's elected official.
Okay.
You don't-
I'm not disagreeing with
No,
you.
it's your eyes that disagree with us.
Yeah, I didn't know the sheriff thing. I'll be honest with you. I thought you had to have some type of a law
That's
enforcement.
why
background.
it's an administration position. It really is. Some, however, like Sheriff Maciel, is a former cop, so
and former
he
police chief
chooses to wear the uniform. Some sheriffs will wear a suit. Some have very little law background.
Hold on, let me do my Jeff impression. $20? You want to bet $20? I'll bet you $20.
You
Come
guys
on, let's
could.
bet $20.
I do
Did
want
I pay you?
I do.
did.
I do want to talk about this mugshot thing in New York State, which is about to pass, and it is supported by the Innocence Project, supporting the governor's proposal to amend the state's Freedom of Information law to ban public disclosure of booking information and mugshots, which law enforcement agencies collect when making an arrest. Governor Cuomo introduced the amendment in an effort to restrict the unwarranted intrusions on personal privacy that having this information really accessible to the public promotes.
I disagree.
Though many Americans, I'm just going to read what they're saying here, okay? It's not my opinion, I'm reading it. Though many Americans share the assumption that a person's mugshot only becomes available when a person is found guilty of a crime. By the way, that's how it is in Canada.
Yeah.
You don't know the accused. I don't even think you know the person's name until they are found guilty. Once guilt is declared, then, and I wonder how they do it with appeal. I mean, you could appeal your way to anonymity, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, at
guess
some
you
point
could.
it runs out, but
I would imagine it does. Oftentimes, it's saying that a person's mugshot is anonymous. It's synonymous with their guilt. Oftentimes, that is not the case. So why this is being pushed forward is because you have someone who, let's say, you've been charged with pedophilia.
Yeah.
And you are not guilty. But your mugshot's going to be shown as long as a grand jury can as long as they arrest you. You don't need a grand jury for that. As long as you're arrested, your mugshot's going to be plastered all over every newspaper as a pedophile. So now, how do you you don't think it will?
No, I think it will. But
will.
if you're found not guilty of that,
Oh, good. For a year down the road, they're going to come back after you've lost your job, after you had somebody throw a rock through your window because you're a scumbag who molests children. That's the argument against having these. It is definitely unfair to falsely accused people.
Can I make
There's
the argument,
no
though,
doubt in my mind.
Can I make the argument for why, in that same case, you should make this public?
I'm not necessarily saying that it shouldn't be done, but sure.
I'm not trying to debate you directly, but here's the problem. Okay, so Mike, whatever, is a school teacher. He gets arrested for pedophilia. No one can know that. What if he is guilty? What if he's not the innocent guy?
And you have to understand that that I was involved in a case several years ago where once that person was arrested, that person's name became public, and I was certainly good with that. However, if you're the guy who is completely innocent of that charge and someone's lying about you, it's an awful thing.
But this is
the reason why
cases.
this is.
Am I wrong?
I don't believe that people found not guilty is necessarily rare. I think it happens far more often than we think. And the problem is that we in the media and we who consume stuff in the media, the consumers,
sure,
we like the stories about the person that's been charged and this is what he did, what a terrible person. We don't tend to give the same attention to the story that says, hey, we got it wrong, he's found not guilty, or no charge, charges were dropped. We kind of don't pay as much attention to that. So meanwhile, your reputation is just being destroyed. I would usually kind of land on the side of protecting the innocent, to be honest with you.
So we have the double homicide that we recently had in the city of Utica. The police make an arrest.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to know who it was. Until there's a conviction.
I'm not even
months
sure
down the road.
You may not even go to trial. You may not be competent to stand.
I'm not sure though that they'd even be able to release a photo of someone that they were searching for. I think that would become a. So I get
think about that.
I'm not sure where I am on this, but I do understand that people are what the reasoning is for doing this. But here's the thing. This is probably, there's no one stopping Governor Cuomo right now. And Cuomo's pushing this. Legislation is turning into law every single day during this early part of the term. And there is not a Republican and upstate person that can really stop it from happening.
Listen, I thought I had a great argument for this. What you just said is an even better argument. So we're looking for a suspect X in a quadruple homicide. He's 5'8".
I don't
know.
He's
balding and wears headphones. How many people call the cops looking for thinking it's you?
I don't know the answer to. Thanks for that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if this would preclude them from prevent them from releasing that photo, but it probably would, right?
It would make sense, right?
Yeah, or a sketch of a person, even. Quite interesting.
This is rough.
Like,
we got to get some experts
like
on this.
your opinion on this one, 315-736-0186. If you want to pipe in on it. On the line right now is Dr. David. Are you suffering from a seasonal? Do you get?
I do.
Depression?
Explain what this is. This
gets worse.
This is upstate New York, no sunshine, seasonal depression.
Yeah, I mean, even just waking up and going out. Even when I take my meds, I've got diagnosed depression, anxiety, but it does worsen in the winter months.
And I do not have diagnosed depression or anxiety.
However, when there's no sunshine.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm definitely down.
Dr. David Barzik is a healthy living specialist who knows all about this. Seasonal depression affects a lot of people, would you say, Doc?
Well, the numbers are, good morning, by the way, but the numbers are anywhere from between 5 and 10% of the population of the United States. So, I mean, that's a big number when you got 330 million people in your country, right?
I wish they would do a more. Take a look at the Northeast, or our area where it's gray all the time. In North Carolina and Florida and California and Texas, they get sun in the winter. They still get the sun. We don't get the sun.
We will have sun tomorrow with a lot of snow on the ground.
Accompanied with -12.
So, Doc, there's I've always been told, and I've never been able to really find anywhere where I can actually find the actual data that proves this, but that we get less sunshine in this Mohawk Valley region of upstate New York. We get less sunshine and more clouds than the rest of the country. For instance, you might say the same thing about Seattle, that's more cloud than sun. Do you find there's more depression, more suicide cases in areas that get less sunshine?
Well, to be clear, the seasonal affective disorder is usually, mood swings, mild depression. Rarely does it enter into the realm of depression and suicide, right? So, but certainly in the northern latitudes, it's much worse because this is linked to our circadian rhythms in a way, right? The rising and falling of the sun stimulates the hypothalamus in the brain, which causes your hormones to be released. So there's a chemical connection to it based on the sunshine. So I would say to you folks that are up in that northern hemisphere, when there is a sunny day like tomorrow, man, go get it. You know what I mean? Like open the windows. Not the windows, but open the shades.
You can't open the windows. It'd be terrible. It's like we're going to be
minus 30,
2 degrees.
Don't open the windows.
There is something to be said for this, too, in that, for instance, as you go to the south, the days are longer. There is more sunshine. I'll have someone FaceTime me from Florida, and I'll be like, where's that? We're all on the East Coast. Where's that sunshine from? You're in the same time zone. Well, it's not going to. The sun won't set here until such and such a time. We just get less sunshine, and I do believe it does. It does have a mental effect on people. What about physical? Is there something to be said for the physical benefits of sunshine?
Well, sure. I mean, this in terms of, remember that we can link our brain, body, and our spirit in many, many, many ways, and that's how I link it in my book. But if you lack sunlight and your hormones are not regular, that's going to have physical effects, fatigue, mood swings. The best way to get out of it, especially if you're up there, is we got to know about it. We got to tweak our behavior. Exercise is a great regulator. So if we get up and move our body, we release some hormones and some endorphins that make us happy. So if you got a sedentary job, you're in the northern hemisphere, you're doubling down on the mood depression, right? So make sure you're getting up. Watch the sugar intake because sugar gets you high and gets you low, so we don't want more imbalance. And, there have been doing some actual light therapy on some folks that have more serious depression when it comes to this, and they're seeing some good benefits. And to me, one of the biggest ones is be social, right? Remember when we get that feeling we want to go in our house and sit on our rock, but if we get out and we're with our friends and people that we care about, we're social, we're also stimulating those hormone releases, and it helps to lift your mood for sure.
I just did a quick Google search. Nerdwallet.com had Syracuse and Rochester both in the top 30. And I went to another site called...
Of less sunshine?
Yes, fewest days of sunshine, fewest percentage of sunshine. And then I went to citydata.com. The top 21, they have 101 cities listed. The top 21 are all in Washington State.
Yeah.
But Syracuse is 25th. Clay, New York is 26th. And Utica, New York ranks 31.
Wow. I was going to ask about, so he had mentioned the Washington State thing. What about states like Washington and Alaska, especially Alaska and some parts of that northwest portion where it's dark for days? I mean, there's no sunshine for days.
Yeah. How about when they go into their winter, it becomes dark and it lasts? What about that? That's got to be something that's depressing.
Some of those areas, it's 20 hours of darkness, right? I mean, for certain parts of the year. So, there is a higher incidence of the deeper depression in that part of the world, So I think, again, just being educated, being physical, being active, and maybe invest in some lights in your house that are similar to the wavelength of the sun to try to get your moods back up for sure.
Doc, I got to tell you, when I get very depressed when I look in my bank account, it's very dark. When you don't see the sunlight in your bank account, it's going to be ugly.
Doesn't mean that it's in the black.
Maybe you should only look at your bank account during the sunlight hours.
That's a good point.
That's right.
I was thinking just during the summer months. That's it. I'm not going to look otherwise. So, all right. The name of your book is what?
Wellness Wake Up Call.
Wellness Wake Up Call, and I'm assuming it's available Amazon and all over the place. Dr. David Barczyk, thanks for pepping us up here this morning
and for shining a light on a serious issue.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys go for a walk after your time is done on the radio, huh?
That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to walk. All right. Thanks, sir. We appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Dr.
Bye-bye.
David Barzik.
And that sunshine.
I'm going to tell you something. I had a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Who, and I don't think, I have no problem saying that I've been to a psychiatrist because I probably need it. This was court mandated, however. So I had to go. That's what they do sometimes in family court.
Oh,
so
okay.
Anyway,
I didn't mean to laugh.
She
I'm
was
sorry.
awesome, by the way, and she said, based on our data, there are more suicides in this region of the country because of the lack of sunshine.
Wow.
Now, I don't know where she got that information from, and maybe she's just making that crap up, but I wouldn't be surprised, right? Kind of depresses people.
I'll tell you, it does wear me down. In the winter, I have to afternoon nap. I cannot make it through the full day. Like otherwise, I'll go to bed at 5:30 at night. But I have to afternoon nap. In the summer, that's not the case. Vitamin D is often talked about as the benefit that, I don't know if it gives you energy or what it is, but that you absorb vitamin D when you're in the sunshine, and that will help your mood or at least your energy levels. And I also want to say as well that's a great commercial for like a most interesting man in the world. He's so interesting. Psychiatrists talk to him.
Yeah. Everybody needs somebody. I got a break here, and when we come back, I want to get into gas prices because of what's going on in Venezuela. We have put an embargo out there on Venezuelan oil. Expected is going to be the potential of rising gas prices. Just when we're finally catching on to lower gas prices around here, we'll talk to Ed Welch from AAA on that coming up. Larry says on the mugshot deal, you'll see a picture of the guy or the woman when the news cameras show him for court appearances. Or will that be banned? You won't be able to show someone walking into a courtroom because, I'm sorry, we can't show that photo. Michael says, actually, the mugshots live on the Internet forever. And they do, even after a person might be found to be not guilty.
Think about Joe Bruno and Sheldon Silver, all the corruption stuff. What, they just take a leave? You're not allowed to know that they've been arrested for alleged corruption? I don't like this at all.
I don't know if you saw Jimmy Kimmel. I think it might be his cook or somebody that was staying at his house. Mm-hmm. Somebody called 911, said there was a gun, someone was being held up. Police came. They took him away. Not Kimmel, but his house guest. Took the guy away and arrested him, and he's now trying to beat the charges because what happens is somebody else calls 911 and makes the call claiming to be you, and you end up finding yourself sitting in a jail cell.
And the claim is that you're not right and that you're going to attack police.
Yeah,
and
there have been deaths that have been the result of this stuff. It's terrible. Ed Welch from AAA is the host of Auto Talk on WIBX. With the latest going on in Venezuela, they, of course, now basically have two presidents. It's a mess. We are imposing some sanctions there when it comes to oil. And word is it's going to drive up the price of oil and ultimately gas. What do you think, Ed? We're going to see some higher gas prices because of this?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Glad to hear that.
Let's back the bus up a little bit. Yesterday, we announced sanctions against the state-owned company of Venezuela, which is Petróleos de Venezuela.
Okay.
And basically, this move comes as we're trying to pressure their president, Nicolas Maduro, to step aside, right?
Yeah.
And they want the guy, Juan Guaido, to actually assume the presidency. Now, Guaido is considered the winner of the disputed election, okay? And of course, Maduro has the backing of the country's defense department, so that's what's going on there. But one of the interesting things is Venezuela, they live and die by their oil exports because that's really their number one industry.
Yeah.
And it's a key source of revenue for their government. But their production has dropped to about 1 million barrels a day from probably 10 times that not too long ago. And obviously it's a great object lesson on why socialism doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But putting that aside for a moment, the U.S. Energy Department does not expect the sanctions to inflict any pain at the pump in this country because much of that oil wasn't coming here.
Wasn't coming here anyway.
Right. So And what's also happening is the oil companies, Chevron, and a few others that actually own the rigs that are out offshore there. The Maduro government said they're basically they're taking control of everything. So, and this is why oil companies don't like doing a lot of business in these banana republics because.
You never know.
Well, yeah, you spend it costs billions to put this oil rig up and do all the drilling and everything, and to have it all just taken away. I mean, Exxon can't show up with a destroyer and a battleship to say, hey, you can't do that.
Yep.
But certainly the United States can, and that's the other interesting part of this is, as the government is looking, our government's looking at, what they're going to do about it. The people in Venezuela are suffering terribly. And I don't know if anyone's followed any of this, but
yeah, it's terrible.
They're running out of the basic necessities of life. And we're talking, basic things, and they're trying to flee the country. A lot of people trying to flee the country to get away from there. So, and that's having that country unstable is not good for South America. And it's not good for us either in the long term. Venezuela should be an ally of ours. We should be doing business with them. We should be buying oil from them. And what's going to happen here is the Russians and others will try to prop up Maduro. And get a foothold, and then we're going to get a lesson on why we had the Monroe Doctrine.
Right. They're already propping him up. China and Russia, Iran. They're supporting him, and then this younger guy, who we say is legitimate. The rest of the free world seems to be supporting him. So it has bigger implications than just Venezuela, I guess.
Yeah, it does, and considering the geography and the weakness of the countries around that area, I think the United States Navy can go down there and pretty much keep order pretty easily.
Yeah.
And that's probably what's going to end up happening because with this embargo, basically, is they're not going to let anything out of the country. So then Venezuela doesn't have the means to – I think the Utica Police Department can go down there and take those guys out. So
they are pretty tough. What do you where are we at on our gas prices right now?
Well, we're at about $2.46 is our retail price average. But you know what? You can go up the street here on the north side of town, and we won't mention names, but it's $2.23 posted.
$2.23.
Wow. $2.23.
Now that's a member price.
Certain place up the street here.
And I know a place $2.29 a cash price.
That's good.
$2.29.
And of course I see 240s on Genesee Street. So
yeah.
And I see 234 on Commercial Drive. Yesterday. So
yep.
You've got literally a 20-25 cent variance 5 miles across town, 3 miles across town. So my rule is always if it's less than 10 miles, go buy it where it's cheap.
My wife paid 89 cents a gallon with her Price Chopper card.
My wife covets that thing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, right?
And she won't let me have access to
I
it.
don't have access either.
She buys the cheap gas. And what's sad about it is my only job with her car is to actually fill it up and keep it clean.
Right, that's right.
So when it needs something, it's my job to take care of it. So the problem is that when the rare occasion she buys gas, she uses that. The rest of the time, I have to pay retail.
So are those deals? You got the membership thing. I guess if you buy a lot of stuff at BJ's, the gas is a perk, right? Same thing with Price Chopper.
And when it's 20 cents a gallon better than retail, even if you're buying 10 gallons, you're buying 10 gallons of gas. That's reasonable. That's money.
Yeah.
So what I personally tend to do, I go there about once a month to pick up things that last a month. So when I go up there, that's when I fill up. I wouldn't go out of my way to go there, but that's what I do, and I'm sure a lot of other people do it. But it's a great perk. And even the other places that have membership that want a cheaper price, you can get the cash card from those guys at the Fast Track. Doesn't cost you nothing.
And you got to attach your credit card, though, right?
And and what they do is they take your driver's license number.
Okay.
So they don't. You can hook it up to your checking account, which I don't recommend. But what I do tell people, if you get the cash card, there's nothing but your driver's license is what they record, so you can fill up at the pump without having to go in first. But you got to pay cash. There is a discount, and if you go on Sundays, that's when they maximize the discount. They actually drop the price of gas on Sundays for members. So you could save 15, 18 cents a gallon on a Sunday, depending on what it is. That may not be a bad deal.
Yeah.
What you're really saving on during the week with that card is the merchant fees. That's where the discount is because you're not using a credit card.
Right.
They tie that directly to your checking account.
Okay.
So no merchant fees. So they're passing along the 3% or whatever to you. It's actually a good gimmick for them because they're not really saving any money on gas. They're really just not giving the merchant fees to Visa or MasterCard.
Remember when we were looking at $4 a gallon? I mean, there was talk of $5 a gallon. Who would have thought 2 or 3 years later we'd be right here paying just over $2 a gallon again?
And you know what? Right now the supply is higher than the demand globally.
Yeah.
Now our Arab friends in OPEC had their meeting in Vienna, and of course they're cutting production, but U.S. production is year over year a lot higher, and it's going to stay that way. We're not going to just continually grow every month. There'll be months where we produce a little less and a little more, but the trend line is U.S. production keeps increasing. There's 4 pipelines that are going to be finished to the Gulf Coast. Remember all the pipeline arguments in the last administration?
Yeah.
Of course, they've all been settled because the new administration just said build the pipeline.
Right.
And they'll be completed in 2019. So all that oil from all these various oil fields are going to end up at the Gulf, and with refining capacity. So what's going to happen there is we're just going to be turning the spigot on for exporting more and more oil. Yeah. So I think it's going to be an imbalance for quite a while. And, of course, our demand is going down. We have problems with the economy in China. The Chinese economy is I won't say in the tank, but it's not growing anymore.
Sure.
It's kind of stagnant for a little while. And that's got a lot to do with what our trade policies are as well as other factors internally there. So if the Chinese don't need a lot of more oil and we have more to give, a lot of other countries aren't going to be able to sell oil at cheap, at a high price. They're going to have to keep it cheap.
Ed Welch is the host of Auto Talk at WIBX Saturday mornings, and, of course, it's from AAA. Ed, we really appreciate the update and the good news. Thanks.
Hey, thanks. We'll keep an eye on things.
All right, cool. Thanks so much. The Mohawk Valley Lunch Club's auction for action. I am the auctioneer. I just can't do it. Auction for action is just around the corner. The Lunch Club is looking for auction items right now, with all proceeds to be donated to area nonprofit organizations. The group is asking for donations that may include restaurant certificates, wine and liquor donations, tickets to great events, experiences, autographs, memorabilia, gift baskets, jewelry, antiques, and more. The money raised benefits several local organizations, including Joseph's Experience, the Abraham House, the Rescue Mission of Utica, Feed Our Vets, the Calverman Center, Deputy Kurt Wyman Park, and many others. The Mohawk Valley Lunch Club's annual auction for action is February 23rd at the Club Monarch. To donate an auction item or to get more information, visit mvlunchclub.com. And I will be the auctioneer for that event. Last year I got my DWI breathalyzer lamp.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's the
that's
coolest
cool.
thing. It's an old breathalyzer and it has a lamp. It's pretty cool. We'll have more details on all of that coming up at W. Do you have something, Davey, to add there? Oh, right. That's coming. We're not done yet. Got a break at WIBX.